What makes a strategy effective in warfare? Today we delve into the fascinating world of triads of warfare. These triads are the building blocks of strategic planning, a prism through which we can understand the intricate dance of conflict. By examining the interplay between three related aspects of warfare, we can glean insights into what makes a strategy successful, or conversely, where it might fail. The first triad we will explore revolves around observation, deception, and surprise. It's a game of cat and mouse, where diligent observation feeds into artful deception, culminating in the achievement of surprise. Neglect in observation, transparency, and anticipation, however, can turn the tables, making this triad a double-edged sword. The next triad is terrain, positioning, and maneuverability. This concerns the physical battleground, where mastery of terrain leads to strategic positioning, enhancing maneuverability. But ignorance of terrain, vulnerable positioning, and limited maneuverability can quickly turn advantages into disadvantages. The third triad focuses on information, communication, and secrecy. Here, accurate information gathering and effective communication pave the way for maintenance of secrecy. However, misinformation, communication breakdown, and compromised secrecy can disrupt the flow of information, causing strategic plans to unravel. Lastly, we look at concentration, dispersion, and focus. This triad is about the deployment of forces. Concentration of forces and tactical dispersion can enable strategic focus. But overextension, clustering, and lack of direction can lead to ineffective force deployment, potentially spelling disaster on the battlefield. Each triad tells a story of balance, a delicate dance between affirmations and negations. A deft hand can leverage these triads to craft a strategy that leaves opponents reeling. A misstep, however, can lead to a quick downfall. In the coming sections, we will delve deeper into each of these triads, exploring their nuances and complexities. We will uncover the strategic depth they offer and how they interact to form the bedrock of any successful war strategy. Join us as we unravel the first triad: observation, deception, and surprise. The first triad of warfare hinges on the interplay of observation, deception, and surprise. Picture a game of chess. Observation is your eyes on the board, tracking your opponent's moves and planning your next. It's the diligent gathering of intelligence on adversaries, the vigilant monitoring that forms the basis of your strategy. Without it, you're playing blind, open to uninformed decisions and costly mistakes. This is what we call negligence in observation, a failure that can turn the tide of battle against you. Then there's deception, the feint, the bluff, the unexpected gambit. It's all about misleading your opponent, making them think you're going one way when you're really going another. It's the artful dissemination of false information, the strategic smokescreen that obscures your true intentions. But fail to be artful. Fail to maintain that veil of inscrutability, and you land in the realm of transparency, where your every move is predictable, every intention clear as day. And finally, surprise. The checkmate that comes out of nowhere, the sudden strike that leaves your enemy reeling. It's the culmination of diligent observation and artful deception. The unexpected maneuver that catches your adversary off guard. But without the first two, achieving surprise is next to impossible. Instead, you find yourself in a state of anticipation, where your enemy sees your moves coming and counters them effectively. But this triad is not just about the individual elements. It's about their interplay, the way they feed into each other, the way they shape the course of conflict. Observation feeds into deception, providing the raw material for your misleading narratives. Deception, in turn, sets the stage for surprise, creating the openings for your unforeseen actions. But it's not always a smooth journey from A to B to C. There can be pitfalls, missteps. Negligence in observation can leave you blind to crucial information, making your deception transparent and your surprise anticipated. Transparency can make your actions predictable, robbing your surprise of its impact. And if your enemy anticipates your moves, your surprise falls flat, turning your deception into a liability and your observation into a wasted effort. It's a delicate balance, a tightrope walk of strategy and counter-strategy. Each element of the triad has its own affirmations and negations, its own strengths and weaknesses. The key is to understand them, to understand their interplay, to harness their potential and avoid their pitfalls. This triad, this dance of observation, deception, and surprise, is at the heart of warfare. It's the foundation of strategic planning, the engine that drives the machinery of conflict. It's a constant reminder of the importance of vigilance, of cunning, of unpredictability. And it's a warning against the dangers of negligence, transparency, and predictability. So whether you're a general on the battlefield or a gamer on the digital front lines, remember this triad. Remember the importance of diligent observation, artful deception, and achieving surprise. Because in the world of warfare, whether real or virtual, these three elements can mean the difference between victory and defeat. This triad underscores the importance of diligent observation, artful deception, and achieving surprise in warfare. Our next triad explores the strategic significance of terrain, positioning, and maneuverability. This triad is a testament to the age-old adage that knowledge is power, particularly when it comes to understanding the lay of the land. Let's begin with terrain, a vital element that can either be an ally or an adversary. Mastery of terrain involves a deep understanding of geographical features and using them to one's advantage. Imagine a commander who knows every hill, every valley, and every river like the back of his hand. This understanding can be leveraged to set up ambushes, create choke points, or find safe passages for retreat. On the flip side, ignorance of terrain can lead to disastrous outcomes. A lack of understanding of geographical features can result in poor positioning, making forces vulnerable to enemy attacks and natural hazards. Now let's talk about positioning. Strategic positioning is all about occupying locations that offer tactical superiority. This could mean holding the high ground for a better view and range of fire, or securing a bridge to control movement across a river. A well-positioned force can dictate the terms of engagement. But what happens when positioning is not well thought out? We get what we call vulnerable positioning, occupying locations that offer little to no tactical advantage, making forces an easy target for the enemy. And finally, maneuverability. This is the ability to move and adapt forces rapidly due to advantageous terrain and positioning. Enhanced maneuverability allows for swift attacks, quick retreats, and the ability to flank the enemy unexpectedly. It's like being a chess player who can move his pieces faster and more unpredictably than his opponent. However, with disadvantageous terrain and positioning, we face limited maneuverability. Here, movement becomes a chore and adaptability takes a hit. Forces become sitting ducks, unable to respond effectively to enemy actions. The interplay between these elements is fascinating. Mastery of terrain can lead to strategic positioning. Strategic positioning, combined with a good grasp of the terrain, can enhance maneuverability. This positive cycle can give a significant edge in any conflict. Conversely, ignorance of terrain can lead to vulnerable positioning, and together, they can severely limit maneuverability. This negative cycle can spell doom for any force. So, let's imagine a scenario. A commander who has mastered the terrain positions his forces on a hilltop, offering a commanding view of the surrounding area. He can swiftly move his forces to respond to enemy movements, catch them in a pincer movement, or retreat to a secure location if needed. This commander has turned the triad of terrain, positioning, and maneuverability to his advantage. On the other hand, consider a commander who is unaware of the terrain and positions his forces in a valley. His movements are restricted by the surrounding hills, and he is vulnerable to attacks from above. Here, the triad works against him. Mastering terrain, understanding positioning, and enhancing maneuverability can drastically tip the scales of a conflict. So whether you are a general leading an army or a gamer commanding virtual troops, remember the importance of this triad in your strategy. The third triad revolves around information, communication, and secrecy. In the grand scheme of warfare, the management of information is crucial. The first positive condition, accurate information gathering, is all about collecting and analyzing relevant data. This could be anything from enemy troop movements to understanding their supply lines. This information forms the basis of any strategic decision-making, and without it, commanders are essentially blind. However, accurate information is only as good as your ability to share it, which brings us to the second condition, effective communication. This is about ensuring that vital information is efficiently and accurately shared among allies. Imagine having a key piece of intelligence but being unable to communicate it to your forces in the field. The result could be disastrous. The final positive condition in this triad is the maintenance of secrecy. This is about keeping sensitive information out of enemy hands. It's not enough to gather and communicate information. You must also protect it. If your enemy knows your plans, they can prepare and counter, turning the tables on you. But what happens when these conditions are not met? The negative conditions of this triad give us a glimpse into these scenarios. Misinformation. The first negative condition is the presence of inaccurate or misleading data. This can lead to poor decisions, wasted resources, and ultimately failure. Misinformation can be as detrimental to a strategy as a lack of information. Next comes communication breakdown. This is when there are failures in transmitting or receiving critical information. It could be due to technical issues, human error, or even sabotage. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. Your forces are left in the dark, unable to coordinate or respond effectively. The final negative condition is compromised secrecy. This is when sensitive data is leaked or intercepted due to poor information handling or communication flaws. It's not just about your plans being exposed, it's also about giving your enemy an advantage. They can use this information to anticipate your moves, deploy countermeasures, or exploit your weaknesses. In the complex world of strategy and warfare, information is power. The ability to gather, communicate, and protect information can be the difference between victory and defeat. It's a delicate balance, a dance of shadows and light, where even the smallest misstep can have far-reaching consequences. Understanding these conditions and how they interact is key to mastering the art of strategy. It's not just about outthinking your opponent, it's about outmaneuvering them, outcommunicating them, and ultimately outplaying them. Accurate information, effective communication, and maintained secrecy form the backbone of strategic planning. Our final triad considers the balance between concentration, dispersion, and focus. Concentration in the context of warfare refers to the strategic amassing of strength at critical points. This could mean gathering your troops at a key location or focusing your resources on a pivotal objective. Concentration is about power and presence. When done right, it allows you to overpower your adversary with sheer force. However, there's a fine line between strategic concentration and overextension. Stretching your forces too thinly can weaken your overall strength and leave you vulnerable. Avoid overextension by ensuring your forces are not spread too wide or thin, diluting their impact. Next, we have dispersion. This is the tactical spreading of forces to create multiple threats and confuse the enemy. It's a game of chess with each piece or unit moving in a calculated manner. Dispersion is about diversion and unpredictability. But again, there's a potential pitfall. Clustering or positioning forces too closely together can make them an easy target for a concentrated attack. Dispersion should be judicious, ensuring each unit has enough space to maneuver without compromising the collective strength. Finally, we have focus. This is the ability to dynamically allocate forces between concentration and dispersion based on the evolving battlefield scenario. It's about being adaptable and responsive, adjusting your strategy as the situation demands. Without focus, you risk a lack of direction. This occurs when there's an absence of a clear strategic objective, leading to ineffective force deployment. To maintain focus, keep your strategic objectives clear and adjust your concentration and dispersion tactics accordingly. So how do these elements interact? Well, when you concentrate your forces, you're better able to disperse them tactically. This is because you have a strong base from which to operate. And when you have a good balance of concentration and dispersion, you can maintain strategic focus, adjusting your tactics as the battlefield scenario evolves. On the flip side, if you overextend your forces, it becomes difficult to disperse them effectively. You're stretched too thin, and your overall strength is diminished. Similarly, if your forces are clustered too closely together, you're an easy target for a concentrated attack. And without a clear strategic focus, your force deployment becomes ineffective, regardless of how well you've concentrated or dispersed your forces. In conclusion, concentration, dispersion, and focus are interdependent. Each element influences the others, creating a dynamic interplay that can either enhance or undermine your overall strategy. They require careful balancing and constant adjustment. In the heat of battle, it's easy to get swept up in the moment and lose sight of these critical elements. But remember, the success of your strategy hinges on your ability to effectively concentrate, disperse, and focus your forces. The right balance between concentration, dispersion, and focus can make or break a battlefield strategy. Warfare is a complex interplay of numerous factors. The elements of observation, deception, and surprise form a triad that underscores the importance of vigilant intelligence gathering, strategic misinformation, and the ability to catch the enemy off guard. Terrain, positioning, and maneuverability highlight the value of geographical mastery, tactical placement, and rapid adaptability. Information, communication, and secrecy emphasize the need for accurate data collection, efficient information sharing, and the protection of sensitive details. Finally, the triad of concentration, dispersion, and focus reflects the dynamics of amassing strength, creating multiple threats, and the ability to allocate forces based on evolving scenarios. Conversely, we've also discussed the negative conditions that arise from negligence in these areas and their detrimental impact on strategic outcomes. Understanding these triads of warfare can provide invaluable insights into the strategies that shape the outcomes of conflicts.